Oh, hello. In today's video, I'm going to go through my tournament report from the Galactic Conquest event at Element Games, which I attended just yesterday and the day before, the 3rd and 4th of May. Let's go. So, what is Galactic Conquest? Galactic Conquest is a 2-day celebration of tabletop gaming in Star Wars, held at Element Games in Stockport. Simultaneously, in their massive gaming space, there was Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Shatterpoint, and Armada, not X-Wing. I know X-Wing's not supported anymore, but neither is Armada. I find it really interesting because online you hear about X-Wing being the one that's still clinging on, but no, it was Armada that had and there was quite a lot of them playing Armada as well. There was also a Disney Lorcana card game event, which amused me because, of course, Star Wars is owned by Disney nowadays. Obviously, I was attending the Shatterpoint event, so we're going to focus on. Day one was a 4-round premiere event, and then day two was a 3-round doubles event, with a little bit of confusion around the actual format for the event there, which I will cover later. I do want to say, before I get started talking about the actual games, it was a really interesting the Galactic Conquest event. There was a pub quiz that we could have done. We did. I was there with Ben Oro from the Discord. Pub quiz that we could have done. We didn't. And then there was a raffle at the end on the Sunday. I actually won 3 prizes in the raffle. It was like It was one of the things where there was a table with loads of different bits of Star Wars merch on, and every time one of your tickets was pulled, you can go up and collect something. So I won 3 prizes, but they were all towards the end when all the actually really good things had gone. So I got like a Chibi Han Solo on a Millennium Falcon that's from Japan, apparently. Uh, I, I I don't care. It may end up on eBay. Uh, I got another Chibi Han Solo and a Chibi Millennium Falcon that's Funko Pop branded, but that one's gone to my wife because she really loves little tiny like pseudo little I don't know, there's probably a name for it, like micro versions of toys, right? And then I also got a classic B1 Battle Droid action figure from like the 90s from the Phantom Menace release, which I've promptly unboxed and put on my shelf because, yeah. Anyway, let's get on with talking about Shatterpoint, all right? So it was Element Games. I've talked about the Element Games Northwest Gaming Centre in a previous video. It's a really large, lovely, well ventilated space, loads of tables. They got a fully licensed bar, so they do coffee. Coffee is £1.20 for like almost a pint of coffee. I mean, it's just instant coffee, but £1.20 for almost a pint of coffee. Then if you hang on to your cup, your paper cup, you can get a refill for 60p. That's pretty good. They sell pop. They sell beer. They got some alcohol-free beer options as well. And then they sell crisps, Haribo, chocolate bars, pot noodles, but only chicken and mushroom, which is the worst flavour of pot noodle. So I don't know what that's all about. But you can order food from neighbouring delivery places, like above a really nice like gourmet burger place. And then there was another place called Just Desserts that was also on. They've got like a little bespoke Element Games Northwest Gaming Centre app. So you scan the QR code, you place your order on your phone, and then the fella comes from one of these neighbouring businesses and brings it to you. The caveat being and the agreement being is that you order through their app, and then they don't have any drinks, so you can't order any drinks from the outside businesses. You have to buy all your drinks from the bar. That's how it works. The food we ordered from 2 different places over the course of the event, and it was fantastic, actually. Yeah, and there was loads of people that were, with the 4 different events for different games going on the first day, but there was loads of room, and on both days as well, there was like 4 guys in the corner just grinding out their casual games of 40k, right? So yeah, it was great fun. Right, so my list for day one. So this is probably the big story of the video. This is my 3rd Shatterpoint tournament, but it was my first Premier tournament. So just to explain Premier to make sure everybody's on the same page. Normally, the way you build a list, and I've made whole videos like this before, the way you build a list in Shatterpoint is you have 2 squads. So you have your primary, secondary, and support, and then another primary, another secondary, another support. Support is typically, but not always, 2 figures. Okay, so on average, right, your team is 8 miniatures. Can be as low as 6. Okay, so you've got either 6, 7, or 8 models arranged into 2 squads. Now with Premier, it's a little bit different. You make 4 squads, and then you have to play all 4 squads at least once during the event. So 4-round event, but remember that each instance of a game, so each round you're using 2 squads. So you can go through your entire sideboard, as it were, in 2 games and then freely pick. Now, academically speaking, there are 3 ways really to approach Premier. Okay, you can do what's called an anchor, where you have one list, one squad that you plan to take in every game, right? And then 3 squads that you rotate through, right? You can do pick a mix, which is just literally where you have 4 squads that can go together in any combination, right? Depending on what you want to do. Or you can do 2x2, which is where you have one list fully locked in together, atomic with synergies, and then a second totally separate list, right? With the caveats being that obviously models can't appear in both lists, right? And you do have to play the same scenario. So again, reminder in Shatterpoint, your scenario is part of your army list. There are currently 4 scenarios to choose from, different strengths and weaknesses to them. If you win the roll-off to go first, you get to choose whether you're playing your scenario or you can choose your opponent's scenario. Okay, so I wanted to use all the models in the Separatist faction, right? And I also, and that there isn't quite enough models for Separatists to fill out a Premier list. So I want to use all the models in the Separatist faction, and then I added in Cad Bane and the generic Bounty Hunters to fill out my Premier list, right? Because that's cool. And also, these are all the models you see here, and then Aura Singh is all the models that I have painted. I went through about 5 different iterations of this list. So the list I ultimately went with is on the screen now. Okay. Originally, I was planning to play General Grievous Anchor list, right? Where Grievous was with Kalani and the Magna Guard, okay? And then I would play him in every single game. And then the B1s would be with Dooku, and otherwise the list here is the same, right? And it would just rotate round. So I play with Grievous in every game, and then rotate through the other 3. That annoyed me though, because like the Magna Guards are really good with Dooku, they're not so good with Grievous. Grievous really likes to have some shooty droids with him. Ideally the B2s, but the B1s will do. The other option that I thought of at one point was, well, I really like, if I'm just playing, and you'll see this list towards the end of the video, I really like Cad Bane. He has 9 squad points, so he can bring Kalani and B2s, right? And basically, the 3 most powerful units in Separatists, most people agree, are the B2s, Kalani, and Count Dooku. Now, some people don't like Kalani, they prefer Kraken, but generally speaking, so being able to always have 2 of those in your list with Cad would have been quite good. The trouble is that would have left me with 1 squad that was like, you know, Asajj Ventress, Jango Fett, and Bounty Hunters. What's that doing? And then I would have also ended up with a squad 3 that was like General Grievous, Kraken, and the B1s, which is actually a point down. Like this list is a point down, but somehow playing a point down in Cad's squad doesn't seem nearly as bad because he brings 9 squad points as playing a point down in like General Grievous' squad. So in the end of it with this list, basically this is the wrong approach. I think, and this is borne out if you look at like what top players. I don't usually care what top players are doing, but it also is borne out from my experiences at the event, as you will see, right? the way to do this is just to take two separate lists that have zero crossover, but that are capable of playing the same mission. Because then you've got two lists that you have actually practiced and that run together like a well-oiled machine. Whereas I ended up playing some less optimal stuff in every game because I tried to kind of spread the stuff around. So a bit more music on this at the end. My mission was the new mission First Contact, although as you'll see that was also brimmingly irrelevant. So first game, I lost the roll-off to go first. So we were playing Sabotage Showdown, which is a very kind of it's a very easy, straightforward default mission. It's very popular. Okay, I was playing as Peter. Peter is a very, very good Shatterpoint player. Okay, he clearly knows the game really, really well. He's been playing since probably launch, I would guess. I think. This will tell you we're playing on. Now, Peter's list, he was taking Mando, Dengar, and the Clan Kreese, and then the Armorer, Bo-Katan, and the covert Mandalorians. So the reason the squads look kind of messed up. The reason the squads are the reason that Bo-Katan and the Clan Kreese aren't in the same squad is because of eras. So the covert have to be with the Armorer, and Dengar has to be with the Mandalorian. What he's essentially done is take a classic list that a lot of people play and swap out Paz Vizsla for Dengar. Now, I've seen a lot of people on the Discord talking about that. That's a tech that's being talked up and is going around because a lot of people don't like Paz Vizsla. This is the first time I've seen anybody do it. But knowing that, because I'd seen it on the Discord, it doesn't always mean anything, because I'm not very good at Shatterpoint and I'm on the Discords. But having seen that and seen this, I'm like, okay, well, this guy's taking something that I've heard of talked about by people who are real competitive players. So that's interesting information. I don't actually recall Dengar doing very much. I knew this would be my hardest game because it's round one, right? It's the game. I don't have a very high opinion of myself in terms of my ability, right? So therefore, I assume that as the games go on, I'll find somebody closer to my skill level, and I'm betting there weren't that many people below my skill level. So I knew this was the hardest game, so I decided to take my best possible list. Interestingly, I saw Oro with this in the car because we were driving over together. And he was saying, round one's going to be my hardest possible game. So he was going to burn the list he was least pleased about playing so that he'd fulfilled his obligation and kind of burn that game. So different approaches. I was I was just comprehensively outplayed. There's not much to tell here. Peter's just a much better player than me. I tend to be like a rolling stone. I think I always play better towards the end of the tournament. So I get the practice in and then I get my eye in with how things are working. So I probably played quite badly. I didn't really have a comprehensive plan for just what I was doing with the scenario. Hadn't played Shatterpoint in a little while, whereas Peter was like a well-oiled machine, just knew exactly what he needed to do, and I didn't offer really enough resistance to him. I did feel like on the map as well, just the ability of the Mandalorians to be like, oh yeah, we activate, we do all this various stuff, and before you know what's going on, all the Mandalorians just up there on the big central terrain piece just milling around. And one really important thing to know about this map is that tower in the middle, there were no access points. So there are access points to get onto the towers all around the outside, but there was no access points to get to the middle tower, whereas of course he's got, and it's not like he's got massive access to jump, whereas in this list I didn't really have any access to jump. So yeah, I struggled a little bit there with the mobility thing. So yeah, Peter won in two struggles. Yeah, again, just kind of a much better player than me. So then we're going into round two, Round 2, I was playing against a guy called Colm Brown. Now, Colm was running Lando's box, which, in my head, I filed Lando's box as being bobbins. I think you can do things with Lando, right? And you can do things with Lobot in different lists, but I didn't think that running Lando's box together was a winning strategy, and I didn't think the wing guard were particularly useful or worthwhile. But really, the way this list works, that Cole was running, I'd never run into Obi-Wan, Obi-2 before, I should say. Obi-2 has an ability that I'd obviously heard of, but hadn't properly internalized what it did, called Mind Trick, which just means that if you try and attack him, he just spends force, and then you just can't attack him, and you can attack someone else with him that's like within range or instead. But if you can't do that, then you just can't do anything. You just wasted your turn. He was in the middle on a point, and I had the tools to deal with him. In terms of, I'd taken Jango Fett, who has Dice's displacement, but because I didn't properly understand what he did when I was like deploying and making my initial move, I ended up trying to kill him or get him off with Savage Opress, who is a murderer with no pushes at all anyway, and it just didn't really work out for me there. So I mean, really, what Cole's list seems to be doing is just going, well, I've got Dooku and I've got Obi-Wan, and they just will not be moved. Yes, they have to spend a lot of force to keep up their defensive abilities, but then Lando does his thing where he just shuffles back in for 2 force regeneration. Really interesting list. Yeah, gained the respect for Obi-2, certainly playing this game. That was a learning experience. I felt like I should have done better because honestly, the side of his board where he had Lando, Lobot, and the Wing Guard, I don't recall very much happening. But I think also potentially he got a little bit lucky with the flip for Struggle 2 in terms of it was kind of stuff that he was on with his really good stuff, but it might not have been luck. It might have been that he had revised the heat map for shifting priorities Struggle 2 and knew precisely which objectives are likely wanted to turn up. I'd never used the bounty hunters before ever, so yes, that another problem is I hadn't really played enough practice games before going to the Premier list, Premier event with everything I wanted to do. So was reading their card for the first time. That was fun. So yeah, lost again in 2 struggles. It's one of those ones because Cole's obviously a really good player. He went on to finish second in the whole tournament. So I'm not sure how I ended up matched into him round 2. He must have just had a really bad round 1. Maybe he lost to the guy that ultimately came first. That's the problem with tournaments. You think, oh, I'm in round 2, so I'm now on the loser's path. But you might just face the second best player in the tournament who just lost to the best player in the tournament. I think that's probably what happened. So we go into game 3. Round 3, I was against Gareth Mekwinski, I want to say. Now I like this table. I like tables with less terrain. I find them easier on my brain, so that was good. I had felt that I suffered 2 fairly decisive losses, so now I just sort of looked at it. Well, without knowing anything about Gareth, he must be pretty bad at the game because I'm also doing pretty badly, right? I thought, look, I'm not going to get any better. So in round, I kind of thought the way this would go is I would probably win this one and then potentially lose the next one, just because that seems to be my path often at tournaments. I either go loss, loss, win, win, or loss, loss, win, loss, generally. So I kind of thought, look, I'll take the list that I'm least confident with. I needed to use Assange's squad. Otherwise, I'd be forced to use it in the last game. I knew by the last game I'd be tired and wanted to use my best stuff. So I used Assange, who is just not good. Like, you read Assange's card and she looks fantastic. She's got diceless displacements. She's pretty good in combat. She's pretty mobile. She's got a lot going for her. She just has one fundamental crippling problem that once she has been wounded, you're not paying 3 force for a force push. You're not paying 2 force for a force jump, and you're certainly not paying 4 force for 2 force jumps. Like, it's not, you know, she can do a lot of stuff if you get, if you give her all the force in the world. Like, there are turns with her when she's not wounded where you might confidently spend 4 force if it's going to be a big turn, and she can do that. She's very force hungry. Um, and I'd just taken her in this squad. I thought, right, yeah, I'll double up on super tactical droids. I'll have really mobile. Robots. Hopefully, I'll win the roll off, and I'll get to play first contact, which is a mission that rewards mobility. But again, I hadn't won a single roll off, so I was playing Sabotage Showdown again, which is not really a scenario that rewards mobility. And I really feel like I'd lost the game in the lack of experience with the Premier format and lack of experience as to how everyone else would approach the Premier format, right? Or most people. This obviously is a list that came pre-prepared. He's going to run these 2 squads together, right? That's his plan. He's obviously practiced with doing the Rebels with Mando and the Commandos. I mean, look, I gave it the old college try. He played a tighter game, but ultimately, I just feel that he won because he had a list that he'd crafted and practiced with, and I had a list where don't think I ever played these miniatures. I'd played all of these models before and knew what they did individually. I knew that they were quite good individually, apart from potentially a Sarge after she's been wounded. But I'd never played them together in this combination ever before in my life, which is basically my critical mistake, right? And I just sort of assumed that that's what Premier was. It was very clear to me from this event and also from listening to various podcasts and things that almost everyone just plays Premier with 2 lists that they've crafted properly to work as a list in the best possible way they can, and then a second list that happens to have to play the same objective and not share any components with the first list. I'm going to keep repeating the point because it's really the main thing that I learned on this first day of the tournament. So we go to round 4, which is where I got my win. It did go to 3 struggles. It was a close game, and Chris, relatively new player as well, but he was playing the sort of textbook Mando's list. I played into this. Zimbad likes this list. I played it before I knew what it did. We were the 2 bottom players. Like, Chris lost and he won the wooden spoon. If I'd lost this game, I would have come bottom and I'd have got the wooden spoon. So really what I did was cheat myself out of the wooden spoon, right? And it was a close game. It went to 3 struggles. I was playing the best list that I could put together from the stuff that I'd brought in the combinations that I'd brought in, which isn't sort of the best separatist list that I think you can build by any stretch of the imagination, but there you go. And yeah, I was happy to get a win. I was happy to go 3-1 rather than 4-0. Right, nobody likes to go 4-0 for sure. It was a nice feeling to get a win. Obviously, I lost the I lost the role to go first and choose my scenario for the 4th time, and therefore played my second. I played 2 shifting and 2 sabotage because everybody likes sabotage and shifting. No one else at the event was even. I don't think anyone else at the event was actually running Never Tell either. I've played Never Tell at a tournament once, and I've won roll-offs at tournaments at Norwich and made people play first contact, but I've never run into another player. No, there was another guy at Norwich that was running first contact. I just didn't run into him. But generally speaking, I would say that sabotage was by far the most popular, followed by shifting. At least in the kind of low-key events that I've been going to. So placings, second to last. Happy to win a game, and happy to have had the experience of my first Premier format and to come away with a lot of thoughts about list building. What's really interesting, like, look down the list, Anthony Robson, who won, obviously Darth Iden, and I mean, I don't have the whole list in front of me, but obviously Darth Iden, and then the Mandos, right? Very obviously, it's 2 separate lists. Colm there, again, the Mandos, and then the list I played, which was Dooku and Lando. Again, I'm assuming very clearly two separate lists. Matthew Kane, looks like Mother Dooku, and then Vader 1 and Ki-Adi-Mundi, which I'm guessing is very clearly two discrete lists. Peter McCabe with the Mandos, and Leia and what's his face? I want to say Yeagan, but that's not quite his name, is it? The Rebels guy that's just gone from my head briefly. Sorry, brain falling out. Big weekend, very hard. Yan, who I really wish that I'd played into, because he looks like somebody that's done well with what it could have been two atomic lists, but it could have been genuine pick and mix, or it could have been Anchor. It's a really interesting set of Republic primaries there. I'm imagining probably it was a Hunter Obi list and then a Ki-Adi Anakin list. But I'd like to dream. And then we've got Ethan with Empire. Again, the Empire, and I was saying this, talking about this with Oro, and saying Ben Hodgson, Oro, same person, and I was saying my thoughts are how I definitely want to run 2 and 2, and he's like, well, I think Empire can do pick and mix. And if there's one tag, I'm sure Galactic Republic probably could as well. But yeah, Empire don't have this problem in the same way. I think with Empire, you genuinely can fill 4 squads with good stuff and not feel like you've taken anything that's less good and is propping up the other stuff. Doctor Monologue there as well. You got Iden, Vader 2, Veers this time. And so basically, I think Ethan's just got his Krennic shipped very quickly, because I know that Oro ordered Krennic on release day and it was waiting for him on Sunday when we got back. So Ethan's just lucky that he got his hands on Krennic, I think. Sam there again. That's an interesting one, isn't it? So that's Obi, Mando, Hunter, and Leia. I'm assuming that's going to be an Obi Hunter list and then a Mando Leia list, to be fair. My friend Ben, who was running Empire Pick and Mix, and really pleased that he did 2 and 2. So Ben has made the sort of ideological decision that he does not want to run Iden, even though he understands that Iden is very powerful, because he's never played and doesn't have any particular interest or knowledge or excitement of Star Wars Battlefront, right? Coupled with the fact that obviously running the absolute filth that makes your opponents roll their eyes is never fun. But I'm sure if Darth Vader was ridiculously filthy, Ben would run Darth Vader. Like, it's the two things together. It's that she's really, really filthy, and that she's like from an obscure piece of canon. So I think I'm really pleased for him that he's done 2 and 2, especially with that kind of self-imposed thing of not wanting to use Iden, despite understanding he'd probably do better. Steve Thorley seems to have 5 primaries listed on his thing, so pass. Gareth there, obviously there's it looks like it was very, very much the list I played, right, and then also a Ki-Adi-Mundi and Plo Koon list. We've got Adam Tudor, another Krennic. It could be Imperial Pick and Mix. It could be that it's 2 distinct lists. I don't know. And there's me, and then just below me we've got Chris, who looks to be playing the list I played, the classic Mando list, and then Maul Grievous. Again, I'm imagining it's 2 discrete lists. So, yeah, then. So there was round 5. There wasn't really a round 5. So at the end of the event, the venue was open at 11 p.m. And I was staying with Ben in his house in Liverpool. It was about 40 minutes away. Didn't really want to just leave and go and sit in Ben's house looking at the wall when we could stay here and play Shatterpoint and socialise there. So we stayed, we played a game. There was a Star Wars themed quiz, which we basically needed a team of 5, and we didn't have a team of 5, and we didn't want to find 3 other people who we'd probably let down, because we're not, like, we're nerds, but we're not, like, I wouldn't say for either of Star Wars, like the films, the comics, the lore was the main thing we were nerdy about. We're not like Star Wars super fans. We've never been to, at least I don't think Ben has, but I've certainly never been to the. I would quite like to go to the Star Wars bit in Disneyland and all the rest of it, but not really that level of Star Wars fan. So um, I played a game. We neither of us used a list that would have been possible in our premiere. Now, on Ben's side of the coin, that just meant putting the Dark Troopers into his Thrawn list, where previously I think he had Stormtroopers, because he was using his Dark Troopers with one of his other squads. For me, I was using Dooku's squad from my premiere as is, but then my current hobby horse, which is this Kalani B2s, I won the roll off and we got to play First Contact. And I won. I won quite decisively. I won in two struggles. Which, on the one hand, yes, like I said to Ben afterwards, like I don't quite understand why I won so handily. You've done better than me at the tournament. So, and part of it was just being going, well, I've not really, I've never seen the First Contact before. I was playing it for the first time, so I didn't really have a strategy or a plan. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, yeah, I don't know that I have a strategy or a plan for any of the for any of the scenarios, but no, I understand that a lot of people do. They know which things might, like I tried to look up and revise like which points are likely to come up in Struggle 2. I'm aware that's a thing that you could do, but memorizing information like yes, on this particular scenario, the middle point has a 33% chance of being active in Struggle 2 is not something I can hold in my brain, which I think is another reason I like First Contact, because you can move them around a lot. But anyway, for me, even taking the thing about Ben never having played First Contact before, in my brain, the main lesson that I took away from this is like, I just need to, if I'm doing Premiere again, I'd like to run probably this list that I ran in this game, and then just a totally different list that doesn't use any of these things. That can also do First Contact, right? That's what I took away from that. I mean, it was nice. I would have preferred a slightly less decisive win because, like, close games are more fun. But taken in the round, like, from completely ignoring my friend's experience of personal joy and taking just my experiences as the sum of the whole thing, getting a really decisive win, taken in a round with the like two decisive drubbings that I'd taken in the actual tournament proper, made me come out of the whole day with a much more balanced outlook overall, right? So that was good. Yeah. So personal reflection. I was woefully unprepared, right? There's no beating around the bush. I had never played Premiere before. I threw a lot of my current favourite painted things together into a list, most of which I played with, but none of which I played in those exact combinations. And I'd never used Savage or the Bounty Hunters before. I'd meant to get a practice game in with where I would at least have used Savage with Zimbad before I went, but then I was coming down with a cold on that day, which I'm now shaken, but I just wasn't feeling it. And then I could have got more practice games in, but of course I was doing. If you follow everything I know on this channel, like, I also, in fact, I mainly perhaps play Kill Team, and I was practicing for a couple of Kill Team events I was also going to. And so my one game a week that I play with Zimbad is either Kill Team or Shatterpoint generally, and it's quite hard to keep my eye in with both, especially for me personally. I noticed that my personal skill level seems to erode quite quickly. I get better quite a lot if I play a lot of games. I always think I'm playing much better by round 3 of a tournament, but then that seems to not go into long-term memory. I think my best option is to make one separatist list that I really like, which at the moment is this one. And then if I go to another Premiere event, have a second totally different list that I've also practiced with. Now, there's a couple of problems here. The way I've been, if you've watched some of my videos about how my collection is organically growing and how I recommend that you collect Star Wars Shatterpoint, the problem is, obvious things on my second list could be Maul Mother, right? Except that I'm using Savage in my separatist list. right? Or CAD Mando, except that I'm using CAD in my separatist list, which locks me out of those other things that I would otherwise have. You know, I'm dipping into things that could be propping up otherwise entirely separate pools. So I have bought, and is on the way, should arrive tomorrow. I didn't buy it. I bought this before the tournament. I bought this because someone was having a May the 4th sale, and I was able to get it for 25 quid. I bought the Death Star escape box, so Charming Leia, Farm Boy Luke, and Han and Chewie in it for the money. Now, I bought that because I like bounty hunters, and at the Norwich tournament, somebody was running a cool CAD Mando list where they used Han and Chewie in it for the money instead of IG 11 or 88, whichever one is the support. And I thought, oh, I want to do that. Now I'm thinking I might end up buying the Andor box when it comes out and running Andor and Charming Leia, just because I think Andor's really cool. Like, I'm a Rebel player now, that's done. But this is all pie in the sky because there's a huge balance, like, refresh coming out any day now. We might decide that actually I don't want to run this separatist list. I want to replace CAD with Asajj because maybe she gets buffed up to her eyeballs, and then that frees up my second list to be bounty hunters. Or something like that. So I'm not committing to things, but this is vaguely where my headspace is at the moment. So the day 2 of the event, so there was some confusion here. It was a doubles format, and there was no explanation anywhere about what the format actually was. I'd sort of talked to the TO and said, what's the thing? And he said, oh, each player brings a squad and you play the squads together. So that's what he said in roughly those words. And so that's what me and Ben did, is we were like, okay, we want 2 squads that will play vaguely together from our own collections. What can we do? And we settled on the list down the bottom. So I brought CAD's box, and Oro brought, Ben, Oro, same person, brought his Vader 5th Brother Boss squad. I think it's his favourite bit that he has, because he really likes Vader Jedi Hunter with 5th Brother. He thinks that's really cool. It is pretty cool, to be fair. And Bosk's not great, but Bosk's awesome, so it's fine. And I kind of came away from talking a little bit to the TO there, Jed, that this was supposed to be a more relaxed, funny, laid-back day 2, with the potential for suboptimal play, bickering over, well, we don't want to use the Force there, I want to use the Force on my guy, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do. I kept joking that I was going to shoot Vader in the back with Aura Singh, with her ability to damage people, and we were approaching it with that mentality. Many people, I think literally everybody else at the event, assumed that it was like a Premier format where one person has one list, a complete list, and one person has another complete list, and they look at your 2 complete lists, and then they pick, but then both humans work together to pilot the one list they've picked. Which, first of all, that only makes sense. Like that's only a thing that you would come up with if in your mind oh yes, Premier is one atomically complete list and then a second atomically complete list, and not anchors and not pick and mix and not anything else. Which is what everybody else thought it was, which is really interesting. I kind of get the impression that the community that goes to the events is actually more competitively minded than the lovely chap that runs them, because they'd all assumed that it was why do I want to run some janky list where I've got one squad, he's got the other? I want to run a functioning list, blah blah blah. So anyway, me and Ben have this funny narrative list. On we go. So round 1, we were versus Ethan and Sam. Now, this does look like it could, in fairness, have been like a squad each from 2 disparate lists, because it's not like they were using Crosshair, but I happen to know that because they came to the table and thought it was Premier format, and that's where we went and got the TO, and the TO said, oh no, it is this, and then we had to tell every other player at the event that they didn't understand the rules, and we did. Which made us really popular people. So, yes, the actual game, it was really fun and really close. I'd never used Aura Sing before. I realised how bad she is. She just can't get down a tree and do things, and her mobility requires her to be able to shoot, so she's a really bad activation setting up one. Both teams made funny deployment errors, so both we and our opponent made a deployment such that on one of the objectives, only one of our models was contesting it. Now, it only actually ended up punishing us because we were the ones that were going first. So over on Oro's side of the board, he had it was Fifth Brother that was on the objective, and Bosk that wasn't quite on the objective. And he got Fifth Brother his first draw, went to go and take a midline objective and stand there, which is really good. And then, when it came time to score the objectives, you couldn't actually put a counter down next to that one because we didn't have anybody on it anymore. And it was the same on their side. They had, I forget which guy it was. I think they moved up their arse, and then Rex wasn't actually on the objective. I think it was Rex. But it didn't matter because they could put their token down at the end of our first activation. So they had that. They didn't have anyone defending it, they realised. But there you go. It's funny that both sides made basically the same error. So it was a really close game. It could have gone either way. Fifth Brother's really interesting, like from watching Oro play his list, because he's really, really powerful. But there is the thing of only having one body, and there were definitely times where, Fifth Brother's just chilling on the point, and they just went, okay, here's Echo and Tech, and they're just on there, and now they've captured it by virtue of the fact that Echo and Tech are two people, and they don't need to defeat Fifth Brother, fight Fifth Brother, or worry about Fifth Brother. They've taken that off you this time, right? So, really interesting to watch. But yeah, it was, it was three struggles. It was a narrow loss. It was a really good fun game, and I really enjoyed it, actually. I enjoyed this second day more than the first day, and part of that is because we didn't actually do particularly better than I did in the first day, but like going through it with a friend is just much more fun, right? So round two, we were on the exact same map, and we were playing the exact same mission because we'd taken Sabotage. Ben wanted to play Sabotage, and in fairness, I didn't have any kind of grounding on what would have been a better choice, and Sabotage is easier. It's a low cognitive load, so I said, yeah, sure, we'll play Sabotage, that's fine. So we were playing against Gareth and Chris, and again they were running the textbook Mando list, and they also thought it was a Premier format, and they'd played Iden in the first game and lost. And then I was explaining to them, oh, you've got the format wrong, go check with the TO. And Gareth was like, if I have to play Iden again, I'm just leaving. So at that point, the TO was just like, oh, just play with whatever you want, right? Just play games, just have fun, please. So fine. People were just swapping and changing, doing whatever. We were just going through with our lists. That was fine, right? We did so much better in this game, I think, because, like, at least on my side of the table, I now understood exactly what our team, both my own stuff that I'd not really used before in terms of Aura Sing, but also what Oro's stuff could do, and it would made it a lot easier to be like, I could competently say, like, oh, if I reserve this and then we get Fifth Brother will be able to do that, rather than me sort of saying, oh, if I reserve something, could any of yours do a thing? And him having to explain to me exactly what things he could potentially do or not do. So that was good. Focusing on just controlling one squad was a really interesting experience because I gained, for example, appreciation of bounty hunters who are really powerful if they get into their ideal circumstances. So bounty hunters have a dash, and then when they focus and spend a force, they gain 3 additional dice, which makes their shooting or fighting really, really powerful. So if they're in a situation where they can dash and then shoot or fight without having to reposition, and you can afford the focus you can afford the force to focus, they're really, really good. And of course, having CAD makes it far more likely that you're going to have that force to focus especially when I had 3 bounty hunters. So every time any of my bounty hunters wounded anything, it was 2 force back. If Bosk ever wounded anything, it was 2 force back. And if Vader or Fifth Brother wounded anything, it was 1 force back. So we had a lot of force, right? Yeah. I also started, because I was focusing on just the one squad, and because the scenario hadn't changed, because the map hadn't changed, and because I'd learned what the Mandos were doing, and because I was letting Ben worry about what Vader and Fifth Brother and Bosk were doing, I started to try and actually lock in and actually work, because Cad Bane's really interesting. I think he's worthwhile. I like him in my separatist lists, but mainly what he does is bring 9 squad points and force refresh. I'm just talking about the force refresh. But I would always struggle to know what to do with him on his actual activation. Like, yeah, he can jump, and he can go stand on a point. But I started to actually lock in on how to use. I never actually managed to use his How About You Step Aside. That didn't really come up. But I managed to get to lock in on how to use and when to think about using No One Gets Between Me and My Job, which is really, really interesting. But we were both struggling with our secondaries. Orasync just bad. There were times in this game and the next game when I was just like, I really wish I had Django. Django would be doing stuff right now. Aura's just kind of milling around back here. She had moments when she got to shoot somebody and then do a 5 stack on somebody else, right? She had moments, but she isn't good. I hope she gets buffed in the forthcoming buffing and nerfing rebalance, that's the word. And in Ben's case, like, I think he was a bit frustrated with how little Bosk was doing, but Bosk, at least, there is no better 3 squad point choice, I don't think, for that list. Like, he had, I think Bosk did better for him than he would have had with Stormtrooper Sergeant, especially in this format where there wasn't some. If there had been some troopers in the other squad, the Stormtrooper Sergeant could have been like, well, I can't tell his brother what to do, but I'm going to wander over there and talk to these troopers. Then maybe Stormtrooper Sergeant would be a better choice in that scenario. But certainly in this format, like Bosk was doing a job. Bosk's job was being all right, doing reasonable stuff. He had his occasional moments, but he was allowing Fifth Brother and Vader to be in the same list, which was really cool. And then in round 3, the final round, we were playing against a team called Daddy and his boy. So this was Peter McCabe, the very highly skilled player that I played in my first round in the first day. And then a guy called Alex, who I think this was his 3rd game of Shatterpoint ever. So Peter was doing something really cool. He was using this as a teaching format. So he was constantly talking through all the things he was doing. And I found it really interesting because he was playing a separatist list. He was playing Dooku's box and Grievous's box together. And as I was listening to him do things, like, I was learning stuff as well. Because I've never really, I've always viewed Grievous's Appetite for Destruction trigger and the dash on it as a way to just, if you need the dash, you can dash, but the main thing it's doing for you is the extra attack. The way he was using Grievous and towing the B2 up behind and doing stuff was really cool. The map's funny because we played on this table on day 1, and since then they came back and plonked down 2 TIE Interceptor toys where those blue circles are. I think because someone complained about the fact that there was just a barren space on the other side of the board. But I didn't take another photograph. So imagine those are blue circles, so vaguely TIE Interceptor toys. Yeah, this was a close. I know we lost 2-0, but it was a closer game than it looked. There was basically a moment where me and Ben collectively threw the game. Right, there was a point where we were going to win the struggle. Bosk had wounded somebody, and so with him that being wounded, and then the momentum that we were about to score at the end of the struggle, we definitely won. And then we'd won, and then I was like, oh, well, Bosk's got another activation. Where we can move him somewhere. And Oro's like, oh, yeah. And Oro genuinely does know the statistics on things. And he's like, yeah, it's got a 66% chance to the center point will light up. So we're like, cool. So we'll move Bosk onto the center with his second thing. That's cool. And then as we were sort of talking through this, and then Peter was like, oh, hang on, I've got Dooku's Revenge trigger, right? So he dashed up some B2s and shot, and then the shooting didn't do anything. That's fine. Or was it? Yeah, but he dashed up the B2s anyway. And then we moved boss. And then we're like, okay, and then the struggle ends, and then Peter's like, well, no, because you moved Bosk off this point, and the B2s are here now, so I flipped the point. And we both we didn't physically do it, we both collectively kind of looked at each other with a look that roughly conveyed, right? Because, and I'm not throwing Oro under the bus, because it was technically his boss. Like, we had been collaboratively planning what we were doing with Boss, and I could have said, oh, wait, the B2s are there now, so we can't move him. So neither of us saw it, and that really... Like, we lost that struggle, and then once you lost struggle, it just... I think the sort of the malaise started to filter in after that, because we both realised that we'd made a mistake. So the real learning moment there is to slow down a little bit, to not get ahead of yourself, because reaction, especially with certain teams, the teams that people choose to play at events as well, the ones that are powerful and popular. There's like, when I feel like when you first start playing Shatterpoint with the things in the core box, there's not that many reactions and things that are interrupting the natural flow. But with the things that people are actually playing, right, there's more and more of those things. You need to wait for everything to resolve before just blindly following the thing that in your head you decided before you received new information, which is the mistake that we both jointly made that mistake, Ben and I think, yeah, but a real learning moment. So we came second from last again, that's where we live. It's funny to me looking at the strike teams, like everybody else has got 4 little primaries there, and we've got 2, that we were the only people on the same page as the TO regarding the format, right? Now, I don't want to, like, I don't live in Manchester, not that it should make a difference really, but like, I don't want to come in and say we're right and everyone else is wrong, but I did clarify with the TO that it was what it was. But my main takeaway is I don't think I enjoy the format that the other 5 teams in the game thought we were playing. I'll tell you why. If you imagine, I've taken so if you imagine it was like they thought it was going to be. So we both rock up with our list from the casual game that we played, right? And then Premier style, I look at we look at their 2 lists, my 2 lists, we look at the scenario, and we decide, oh, we're either going to do Empire or Seps. I feel like, and this is probably a me problem, because our opponents did communicate by and large, but I feel like if it's Ben's list, then I'm going to watch the game and I'm going to make the odd suggestion here and there, but very much he's going to be playing it. And likewise, when I'm playing my Seps, I'm going to feel like I'm playing, and it's going to be far less collaborative. I liked the format as it was advertised by the TO, where like we both had control over one squad, and then yes, there's collaboration and there's discussion, but ultimately, I got the veto and the deciding casting vote over what I was going to do with my stuff. Ben got the veto and deciding casting vote over what he was going to do with his stuff, and that made there be an element of collaboration. It meant that the game was engaging for both of us most of the time, and yeah, I really enjoyed the format, but I think we must have been the only ones, us and the TO, because everyone else wanted to interpret it in a different way. So therefore, if this is advertised like this again, I'm not saying I wouldn't play it, but I'd be a bit more wary of it, because I just feel like I'd find it boring if it was this pseudo Premier thing when we were playing the other guy's list, especially if it was a list that I didn't really understand. I don't know. I also really enjoyed the chance to just focus on one squad, 5 miniatures. I feel like I've really dialed in and learned how to use Cad Bane a bit better by virtue of playing it this way. So I really enjoyed it, but it was just that weird thing about it felt like if we hadn't been there, the CEO would have just caved and been like, "Okay, players, you play the format that you think we're playing, and I'll just sit here and then you get on with it." But yeah, interesting one. Final thoughts. If you were at the event and I've managed to like, I don't. It's funny when I go to kill team events, I have little dice with my channel logo on, and I'm like, "Oh yay, here's a dice. I've got a YouTube channel. Blah blah blah." It's not something that organically comes up. And without like something to make it a positive experience, like I'm giving you something, I struggle to. By the way, I have a YouTube channel. Like people assume if you have a YouTube channel, you're going to be good at the game. Is often what I find, and I'm not. So it's a hard thing to advertise. So I think maybe I guess with stickers, mate. The trouble is it uses non-standard dice, so you can't really have dice. But in case I managed to find anybody that was at the event that wants to watch this back, do let me know your thoughts in the comments. I've booked in to do the. I didn't think I was going to be able to. My wife and I have shifted some stuff around. Should be my wife and and it's not 100% confirmed yet, but hopefully, probably Ben as well at the Element Games Star Wars Shatterpoint GT. That's not until September, so I'm looking for some other events to go to between now and then. I talked about the raffle at the start. That's fine. So yeah, that's really it. Do subscribe, comment, like, etc. to join the Discord. A big thanks to all my members, particularly to Sam Troth, and also that other guy whose name you can read on the screen, who specifically, Nightfall specifically said to me, "Oh, I don't want a shout out on any Star Wars Shatterpoint videos." So I'm not giving him the classic shout out. I'm still rambling a little bit. I do appreciate his 500 contributions. I'm very curious because if he knows that I've mentioned him now, that implies he sat through an entire 57-minute Shatterpoint video, which is in itself interesting information to me. And on that bombshell, I'm going to say bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye. Goodbye.